morning, everybody. It is so good to have you here with me. Imagine
if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the picture. Something that was taking 5 years, 6, 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence. There we go again. We are live. Good morning, everybody. This is the Inside Show with Carl Hendricks, and I've got guests here with me in my studio here today. I've got Xavier Hendricks and I've got Roden Bora with me here, and we have a wonderful discussion here around mass media's influence on roles in society. Well, there's so many things that's happening today in our homes, in institutes, and so on. So we're going to try to cover 4 segments here today on the mass media's influence on roles in society. The role exactly. But before I get into that, I want Roden Bora just to give me a definition on the roles in society.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be on the show again, Doc. Mm-hmm. Really, when we talk about mass media, we're talking about all platforms. That's television, movies, any adverts, anything that is media, right? But the influence of it, right, it has an effect on the human life, which can include voting, the way we vote, the way we think when it comes to political parties, individual views, beliefs, skewing a person's knowledge about a certain topic, and it can be based upon fact or it can be based upon lies.
There you have it.
That's all the influence.
That's all the influences there. And today we're going to look a little about, I don't know about you watching, most probably you're a parent there, and the influence of the multimedia platforms on your child, and how your child behaves in the house, parent to child, and even child to parent. It doesn't matter what it is. So that is one segment that we would love to handle. Another one is about the educators, how children behave these days at varsity or at school based on mass media influences. If you look at, for instance, what's happening in American schools, a child will rock up with a gun and just start blindly shoot people at school in America. Well, thank God we don't have that experience here in South Africa. Then we look at the influences between couples, marital couples, or just couples, or partners, and we will look exactly about how that mass media influenced that form of relationship. And then there's another one that I'm missing. Which one is that one? But we will do 4 segments.
We've got the children, we've got the educators.
The clergy. Wow, that's the one. Thank you so much, Leandra. There's the one on the clergy. The one on the clergy, that is a sticky one. Yeah, that's a sticky one. So there's the 4 segments that we're going to discuss here today on the set, and then we're going to see how we go for in this hour. So the question that we ask, or the questions, is who's behind it? So if mass media comes out, if it's on Facebook, if it's on Twitter, it doesn't matter what it is. Who's behind it? And what's their motivation? And what do they want from you? And then how does it make you feel now that they achieve their objectives? And do they want you to feel that way, and why? So this is just a whole lot of questions that's out there. I want you, please, if you don't mind, please subscribe and then hit that bell. Every time when we come on, you will know that we are online. And thank you so much for tuning in again. I would love you to participate with me today, please. It doesn't matter if you're a youngster, a teenager. It doesn't matter if you're a student, a scholar. It doesn't matter if you a husband or a wife or kid. It doesn't matter. But anything that we're going to, even pastors for that matter, I would love you please to be involved with us here today. We will read your requests or questions or any form of comment. I would love you please to participate. It will give us such great joy here. Well, let's talk a little about role play and parenting. I was shocked by stats. Do you know that it's conducted by the AC Nielsen research? The average child will watch 40,000 murders. Can you believe that, Xavier? Wow. 40,000 murders before the age of 18 and 200,000 acts of violence on TV before the age of 18. That is scary, because that is really, really scary. Just to give you a little stats there, so the media are bringing the outside world into your house with or without your permission.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what your home values. Yeah. because it's coming.
Yeah.
You watch TV with your child. I don't know if you watch a movie, how many murders do you see? And how lately they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
They show
you see it as part of the storyline, and you don't actually
Realize that it's a murder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it plants itself in your subconscious.
Can I mention something on that? I think the big thing that we must never underestimate is the power of conditioning, right? Conditioning, I want to focus on that word conditioning. What conditioning does is, you ever heard the story about the frog swimming in lukewarm water, right? And so scientists have then proven the frog will swim in normal room temperature water, and they'd slowly start lifting the temperature of the water to the place where the water starts boiling and the frog ends up dying in the water, right? And so that's conditioning. It's desensitizing. You like to use the word sensitize. It's desensitizing the mind to a place where the mind later on begins to accept it as a reality and as a norm. And so what media does is they begin to desensitize your senses from an early age. And so when you begin to look at wars like Upper Africa wars with the Hutsis and the Tutsis, what they would find is that the earlier on that they can bring a young person into the fold to begin to shoot, to murder, what they do is the first murder, they'll say, grab this AK-47 and shoot. And that kid will be scared, closing their eyes, and they'll pull the trigger. By the second, third time, that kid will be shooting people without the conscious.
Exactly.
And the same thing happens in human trafficking. So they'll take as young as you possibly can and begin to drag that person and make them, condition them to the life of it's okay just to lay with any person because you have then become conditioned. So conditioning is important for what media is trying to do, because the younger they can get you to believe the narrative, the easier it will be to sell whatever they're selling, and the easier it will be for you to buy what they're selling, because now you've been conditioned in that mindset to say, oh, this is normal, this is fine, this is okay. And then you accept it as normal.
I was just wondering, is there any parent out there watching today or at any point in time? Let us know if you could notice any misbehavior or any change in behavior around your children, your own children, after watching something or constantly watching it. I remember when my kids drop their children off, which is my grandchildren, they kind of have a do's and don'ts. And I just most probably want Xavier to explain to me around why is it that we can't put it on. It's on DSTV. There's certain children's programs that you don't want us to let them watch.
Yeah.
So what are those programs?
So when you come from a spiritual background, right? There's things, and so the Bible speaks about it this way. The Bible says that when you are spirit-full, there will be things that you will be able to pick up in your spirit that the average carnal person won't necessarily see. So being spirit-full, having also the Holy Spirit inside of me, there's many times I would watch movies or even these cartoons, and I'd see things that I'll be like, the devil thought you were slick on this one. I can see where he's going with this issue, right? And so there'll be hints of sin that we'll throw into there. There'll be hints of demon. So stuff like Ben 10, right, is a kid that fights demons. So he goes out and fights monsters. Then there's especially Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network is filled with shows of fighting monsters. And so they'll use language and what alerted me to this, or put up a red flag in my head, is they use language, the same language we use in church when we speak about fighting spirits and fighting demons and fighting forces, evil forces. And that same language is being used in a cartoon that my 3-year-old is watching. And I'm realizing that, and this guy says, I've just been possessed by the demon of whatever. And I'm sitting and watching this and I'm thinking, this is something that's being played to 3-year-olds, being possessed by the demon spirit of whatever. And it's coming across as so normal, and parents are sitting there in the lounge, the child is watching it there, like shows like Ben 10, shows like, I can't remember, I haven't seen it in a while, but these shows happen. And from a spiritual perspective, I sat there and I realized, hey man, this is talking about serious spiritual issues that is not conducive for a 3-year-old to understand.
You know what, I made a statement last week, Wednesday, right, that it really makes sense to me now, when I made the statement that if you corrupt thoughts, right, it pollutes the heart, right? Which means you don't know why your children are acting out in a certain way. But just go back, trace it back as to what have you been feeding them in terms of their minds, in their thought life. What is in their subconscious? And it's all these programs. I mean, even just watching the news these days is a risk because there are too much violence, even on the news.
Let's talk a little about sexual content. So kids today are bombarded with sexual messages and images on all media platforms. It doesn't matter, even watching television. So parents are often concerned about whether these messages are healthy. And research done by the University of North Carolina shows that the teenagers who are exposed to more sex talks and acts in the media are more likely to engage in those same behaviors themselves.
Or experiment in their behaviors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I firmly believe now the first thing that I want to establish here today on the set is that media is here to stay.
True.
You cannot wish it away, you cannot pray it away, it's here to stay. The question is, how do we work around that? And every single parent, and let me just put all parents at ease and calm them down. There's some grace for every generation.
True.
So it doesn't matter. So for where I sit as a Generation X, and I look at the millennials, they are raising their kids now. It seems like, oh my God. Now, let's rewind it a bit. When I was just young, there was no TV. Remember, TV came out in 1976 in South Africa. So we were relevantly raised without violence. The only violence that you could see was the one during break at school. Two kids hitting one another.
After school.
After school, I dare you after school. But now, and you could raise a child completely different. Now, violence is in your house. Sex is in your house. Now, I just want to talk a little about that and just hear from you. How does that influence a child's mind? Now, this is my take. There's certain things that should only be triggered when a child is a specific age. So if you trigger stuff, they will not understand the meaning of it. But it was way too early for a child watching a 3-year-old child or a 2-year-old child watching a sex scene, a live sex scene, and it's in every. First, it started out as kissing. And then from kissing, a little more touching and in bed. And sometimes they close the sheets and it's in bed. Now, they go to the deed. It's literally, they just show everything out there. So I was just thinking the harm of mass media with children. And what's parents really doing out there today?
I think as a parent, overall, we find parents blaming teachers and saying the teacher must do this, the teacher must do that. I think the way society is set up in the 21st century is weird because society is set up in such a way that your child spends a lot of time away from you in the 24-hour day cycle, right? The child is at school, you at work, you get home, you're also tired. And so that balance between trying to keep that balance of being active in your child's life is something you have to actively switch on inside of you to say, hey, whoa, I need to spend time with my child now. I need to leave what I'm doing and actually go and spend time. It's something that you must do. And it's weird because you're tired, you come home from work, you've been working hard, you've been doing, sometimes you have to do something again at night, but you have to physically make it a means for your day to say, let me leave what I'm doing and go in here and see what my child is doing. And in doing that, you're going to get closer to your child. And I'm speaking from my own experience now with my daughter. My daughter's 5 years old, and she's starting to ask questions. So yesterday, we drove past, we were taking a walk, and somebody drove past with a golf cart, and she smelled the smoke that person was smoking. And she said, those people in that golf cart is smoking. And she said, do we smoke? I said, no, baby, we don't smoke. She asked, why not? Then I had to explain to her. I couldn't throw her with a Bible verse. I couldn't throw her with a religious answer. I had to explain to her scientifically why smoking is bad for your health. So I told her, look, we don't smoke. Mommy doesn't smoke. Daddy doesn't smoke. And the reason we don't smoke is simply because we don't believe in smoking. And also, it damages your lungs. It's messing up your lungs. So as we walked again, another golf cart drove past. And she said, those people are messing up their lungs. And she, the golf cart drove past and she's like, those people, I smelled it. And she said it out of the blue. Those people are messing up their lungs. And so And that's the thing. You have, if that child had to hear at school that no, it's fine, try it.
Yeah.
I was gonna be too late to jump ahead of that narrative and say, whoa, wait, that's not. We don't do this here in our house. You know what? This is not what. This is the boundary we don't cross. So if we don't, as a parent, get physically involved in our children's lives, you're going to sit with your head in your hands later, and you're gonna blame the teachers and the schooling system and everything else. But it starts at the house where you actually have to put time aside.
True. You know, I'm reminded, I'm now thinking about a sermon that Pastor Xavier Hendricks preached yesterday about the fight, but more violently. I'm thinking about another sermon many moons ago that Doc preached when he spoke about with a samurai sword in his hand, and he said that you have to fight for your family, right? We're talking about influence here. Mass media is unapologetic when it comes to their intentions, right? To destroy the household, the family values. They are unapologetic. So you need to really, as a parent, go out of your way to be protective. Yes, I agree. We don't spend every hour with our children.
Yeah, you don't know what they're looking at. You don't know what they're being exposed to.
But you know what? I've learned at a very young age with my children that the more time I spend with them, it is my opportunity to influence them. That ride from home to school was opportunity to influence them, right? Because I knew exactly what they were exposed to, and you need to know what is happening out there. You need to educate yourself.
I want to say something on that. You mentioned something that the media is unapologetic about their narrative. The media is going one step further. Outside of being unapologetic, they are vilifying your narrative, which means they're making your narrative seem as if you are attacking them. So if they drive a narrative of LGBTQ plus, and you say, hold on, as children, as Christians, we don't necessarily agree with that lifestyle choice. They vilify your narrative. If they drive a narrative of there's 1 million people dying a day, and you going and saying, hold on, that doesn't look like what's happening, what I'm seeing on a daily basis. It almost sounds to me that you're pushing a narrative for a different end. When you bring that up and share your point of view, they vilify your narrative to the point where cancel culture has become a thing where they delete your profile, they cancel you, they switch everything off because they just feel like, hold on, you are, and I like to say this, people say the woke culture. Now the woke culture is getting so woke that they're becoming stupid, that they're not even seeing things, they're losing their sense of common sense. They're so woke they can't even see the common sense thing. And so to be woke is to try and fit in with a narrative. So if the whole entire mainstream is going this narrative, if you going with them like a dead fish goes with the flow, then you are woke. So I like to say I'm not woke, I'm awake. I can see, hold on, there's a different agenda being pushed here. And everyone's so scared to raise their hand and say, hey, hold on, man, I actually don't agree with this. Because the second you raise your hand and disagree, they cancel your platform, they switch you off, they vilify you, they put you in the naughty corner, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we have to get to the place where we also become, the word you used was unapologetic, about where we stand, about why we believe what we believe, because we can see the society deteriorating day after day after day after day. We see, this morning I was listening on the news, they're getting now 1,000 phone calls of anxiety, this anxiety hotline, that the stress and anxiety hotline that they've put together, governments put together. It started with 600 calls per day. It's now on 1,000 something calls per day. People are losing touch with their emotions, they're losing touch with their mental health, and the reason is because mainstream media is driving narratives that is destabilizing our moral compass and our values, and we have to do something about it.
I just want to mention this to you, Xavier, is that everything is money driven.
True.
Anything that sells and bring the dollar home, they don't care. The moral is secondary.
The damage it causes.
They don't worry about the damage. Now, mass media, and we are not negative towards it because there's good into it in as well. But somebody need to at some point say, wait a minute, as parents, are we accepting this just as is? Remember now, sex, it was allowed, or most probably kids in high school will start experimenting with sex. Now, it's in primary school. Where did that start and how did that start? It's now a norm for kids to sleep over but sleep in primary school and being sexually active in your house. It is weird.
But look at the contradiction here, right? On the one hand, the mainstream is saying that there are certain things that kids are too young to understand and kids shouldn't be exposed to and kids shouldn't be able to make those decisions. On the other hand, there's this man in Canada that is now fighting the Canadian government in court. I don't know if you've seen that story. He's fighting the Canadian government in court that his 3-year-old or 5-year-old wanted to have a complete sex change, right? A complete transgender change. And so the government told him as the father, there's nothing you can say, there's nothing you can do. If this child wants to do it, the government went one step further. They are now suing him for having a say in his child's life. How do we get to the place where a parent can't even have a say? Because you're saying a guardian or a parent must sign for a child up until 18 or 21 for the legal age to drive, or the legal age to drink, or the legal age, because then scientifically they even show that your medulla oblongata or the frontal global cortex can't make certain decisions after a certain time because you haven't fully yet developed your mental state. So as a parent, that is your responsibility, to be there for the child during that period where they can't make decisions because they haven't fully developed their mind to be able to make smart decisions. Because you are 20, 30 years older than they are. You know what consequences of certain decisions are. So as a parent, it's your duty. How does the government have the right to take away your parental right and guidance over your own child? It's getting ridiculous. And as these different first world countries start passing these laws, it's only a matter of time it starts coming to us, and then later on you have no say over the life of your child.
And if you differ, you look like the foolish person in the role. You're not supposed to differ with them. So Leandra, do you have some questions or any comments or something like that?
There's no questions at the moment. The conversation is still going on, so we'll wait for anybody who does have any questions or comments. Maybe you have an incident that you'd like to mention. Let us know if you want to remain anonymous, though, and don't mention names if you don't want to, call people out. But I feel like it's a very important topic, so do hop in on the conversation. But at the moment, there's no questions or comments, so we can continue with the conversation.
Okay, fine. This topic about the kids is really a very, very important one, because if we don't lay the foundation properly at a young age, that's why we struggle with teenagers, and that's why we struggle with people as already adults, because they still have this behavior that they picked up between the ages of 0 and 5. And that's the foundational years. And I'm by no means an expert in this field.
True.
But that is exactly what it is.
Doc, if I can just maybe latch onto something that Doc many moons ago also mentioned. You mentioned that, a child in America, when they go to high school, they know all their rights already. So you can't actually tell them anything because they will tell you better off that I can sue you. And that, by the grace of God, I think South Africa has progressed a lot over time. And I look at my young adult children. They know their rights. They know exactly what they believe in and what they stand on, right? But it is based upon laying a proper foundation. I'm getting back to the point that, the responsibility at the end of the day lies to what happens at home and the foundation parents set for their children. Because the Bible is clear. If you train up a child in the way of the Lord, right, they will not depart from it, right? But it's grace again that will keep them on the right path.
They reckon children who watch excessive television or on multimedia platforms are likely to read fewer books, also be overweight, use the platforms as a form of escape. I don't know if you notice these days that you can hardly address a child without looking up. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they're so in what they do, they don't even pay attention to you any longer. There's just this, we're not against the media. We're not against platforms. We use it ourselves. But what we say, it's here to stay. And I firmly believe we should put now boundaries in place. It's about time now that we get boundaries in place.
There needs to be balance and boundaries. I found this guy, Canadian father Robert Hoogland of Surrey, British Columbia, tells how British Columbia Supreme Court puts his daughter on testosterone on the sole basis of their own consent. So the the government decided now we're putting this 14-year-old girl on testosterone.
It
And
is-
there's nothing the father can say or do.
It is sad because what's really happening, as much as there is a democratic system, as much as you have that system, you find that there's one narrative driven within that system.
Definitely.
And it's really, really clear.
gets
I was just
censored.
wondering, you think I can move on to the next segment? Because I really enjoyed this one. It was
Definitely.
like, or is there anything you want to contribute?
Yeah, I just wanna ask the question, like especially with instances like this, when the government is now enforcing its power on parents, right? And not just that, because obviously the government knows that. For me, I believe that government doesn't do anything unintentionally. There's always an intention behind it, whether they are approving new policies or whether they are changing legislation. There is an agenda behind it. So we need to get to a place where we become awake, where we are awake for the tactics of what's happening behind the scenes. You think that the government's just doing it because but there must be an agenda, and we need to question that. As citizens, we need to question that. We need to be free thinkers and not just go with the flow, with the narrative, because the government also knows that the media will play into their hands. We see these things happening all the time, and people just boil it down to, it's a conspiracy theory.
And that's the challenge. I was watching an interview with Patrick Bet-David. He was interviewing a guy that was claimed to be one of the biggest conspiracy theorists. And then they also deleted his when COVID first came out, he was the first guy that came out on that. He's a British guy, and came out and said, hold on, something doesn't smell right here.
Yeah.
And they deleted his platform. They deleted that video offline. You couldn't find it again afterwards. So he got interviewed. And so again, then he was interviewing Robert Kawasaki, and he said, I was just on a 2-hour podcast now with this guy. I can't remember his name. And Robert asked him, did they delete the video yet? And he's like, not yet, but I don't know how long it's going to stay up. And so it got to the place where this guy even said, there were things I said 10 years ago, and people called me crazy, and people said it was conspiracy, and people said, and now it's happening. There were things that they called out to the date and to the time, and he said the government's going to start doing this, and this. And now they're rewinding his 10-year ago video and saying, you said I was mad and it was a conspiracy theory. Here's it happening.
I think we need to move on here. It's
Yes.
another very, very interesting topic here today.
Definitely.
Around the influence of mass media in role play.
Yes.
Meaning, how does kids behave towards parents? How does parents behave towards the kids?
Yes.
And the whole thing around that. And we just touched most probably on two things on that. One was on violence, and the other one was on the sexual behavior
Yes.
of kids watching these things and the murders that the kids will see before the age of 18. The amount of murders is just 400,000 murders before the age of 18. Of course. Now, the other topic that is rather sensitive is around partners, marital couples, and so on, around the influences of the mass media. So they say that increase suspiciously on snooping and jealousy. If you look at the social media, provides easy access for jealous and suspicious spouses to seek out information about the interaction of the significant other. It's also saying that this often leads to the increase of monitoring, jealousy, and conflict in relationships. In fact, researchers have found that the more a person examines their partners on Facebook activities, the more that person reports jealousy and mistrust. So this is rather interesting subject about the influences. Now, here you are happily married, you're in a relationship, but there's a platform now right there under your nose that you can get involved with a whole lot of other women or men online while you, or not just, you most probably not, you're not married, you're just in a relationship, but you're in a fixed relationship, what they say is steady relationship, if there's still something like that. I'm not sure. But for whatever it is, so if you look at that and all the affairs that comes from that. Before we get into this conversation, let me just get the stats out of the way here. So 1 in 10 adults admits to hiding messages and posts from their significant other. Then 8% of adults in relationships admit to having secret accounts. then 1 in 3 divorces starts as an online affair. 1 in 3 starts as an online affair. So it's easier these days because it's easier to connect with your ex, because there was your ex, I don't know where under normal circumstances, if there was not mass media involved, you wouldn't have known, you would have lost touch. But now you can get back on touch. And it also got a lot to do with seek out a fling. So at the end of the day, when you look at all these things, it is a reality. It's under our nose. It's right there, and it influences marriages at this point in time as we speak. So, any contribution?
Yeah, from my side, I think number one, if you do get married, I'm speaking from marriage perspective, right? There must be a place where you make it up in your mind that this is it, especially if you believe in marriage as the entity and how God instituted it in the original state as how it's supposed to be. Yeah. I'm not talking about all these little tales that the government and that, everyone else has just put on the side, how it's supposed to be. I'm talking about the purest form of marriage. Then you must make up in your mind that it's done, it's over, this is who I'm spending my life with, this is the person I've decided to settle down with, and if I'm going to make memories, I'm going to make it with this person. If we're going to go through difficult times, we're going to go through it with this person. If we're going to go through ups and downs, this is the person I'm going to do it with. If we fight, I'm fighting with you. And something interesting Pastor Wayne said the other day on a different conversation we had was that it's important sometimes that we don't see fight as a negative thing, because he said that the second one of the partners stop fighting, it means they've copped out. They were like, okay, bro, do you, I'm doing me. And then there's no more engagement because you've really stopped caring. So you don't really see the need to, I'm not even going to argue with you at this point. So sometimes fighting for your marriage is not always a negative thing. It means that, hey, I'm still here and I still want this thing to work. And as far as social media is concerned, my wife and I, we have an open book policy. You know my passwords. You know all my things. You can go in whenever you feel like doing it. You can open my phones. I have no secret phones on the side. And we've adopted that policy early on in our marriage to understand that no one's hiding anything, no one's dodging around, no one's doing something they shouldn't be doing. So that's a policy we've adopted.
Yeah, and I think in a marriage, you or in any relationship, when it comes to social media, there needs to be an understanding. And a couple of years ago, I think couples would not have had that discussion based upon social media, right? But now they must have that discussion, because the moment the one partner posts something and you don't comment on it, or you don't, then there's questions as to why are you not commenting on it, right? And that's where the seed basically of discord starts, right? And the question starts, and from that perspective. So there needs to be an understanding between the parties as to how they're going to approach social media, so that it does not cause any unnecessary questions within their relationship.
So what you're actually saying in essence, Roden, is that the thing that was supposed to be a blessing, and we're not against the multimedia platforms, is the very thing that's causing the conflict within the house.
Definitely.
Like somebody posts something, and you don't like it or say something on it, and the person gets upset and even delete you for one reason or the other.
Yeah.
Right, within the household. Or sometimes, you know what's really interesting? I can almost tell when couples and marital couples and relational couples, I can almost tell when they fight.
Yeah, because they delete the pictures.
They go online.
Yeah.
They go online.
They
it's
take
like
the fight online.
they take the fight online,
Yes.
and that's a huge negative.
Definitely.
I think there's a sense of maturity also that needs to be involved, because if we have a misunderstanding, the maturity has to step into a place where it's like, hey, hold on, let's deal with this thing, yeah, and the whole world doesn't need to know we're having a misunderstanding at this point.
That's why I'm saying that there needs to be rules and regulations
Yeah.
as to what goes to social media. And people spite each other when it comes to social media.
Definitely.
I'm not mentioning names, but I mean, a couple of months ago, there was a prominent presenter, right, here in South Africa, that basically his relationship was taken to social media. It was aired, and it was destructive. It destroyed
but
his
you know what?
entire career.
On this show, you can mention it because it's public.
It's in public domain.
Come, I tell you, that very same company do the adverts now without him.
Yes.
It's only you in a car now.
Exactly.
They say, when I phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's ironic. Sorry, Mr. Roden. It was quite ironic to think that this thing that is supposed to be used for communication is so detrimental to communication, especially like constructive communication. It's very destructive. And I think that when the creators of these apps, and I'm going to mention a few of these apps, Telegram and OnlyFans, right? I'm just going to mention those two, and I'm going to get into it. So when the creators created these apps, for instance, Telegram was launched in 2013. OnlyFans was launched in 2016. So with Telegram, it's almost like WhatsApp. Remember that whole WhatsApp debacle? They were like, they hacking into your phone and stuff. Then people wanted to hop over to Telegram. So initially, like with Telegram, it was almost, it's a chat app, right? But it's got other features. Like for instance, you can go private. So your partner can't see. You can hide certain chats. It only lasts 24 hours. So it's like while you know, being sneaky about it. It wasn't meant for that purpose, right? But obviously, that's just how the human nature is. But it's influenced by something. And it's definitely influenced by media itself. Then we have OnlyFans. OnlyFans was created for content subscription. So what content creators it was for content creators, which means that content creators would create, like for instance, videos or whatever the case may be for their fans to pay. So it's not like I'm putting it out there on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and I'm not getting paid for it. It was meant for subscription. Then people started using it to strip for people. So now
porn,
it became porn, right? So it was just meant to share content. Then it became very popular, known as like this freely available porn site. Not freely available because you'd have to pay for it. And there was young people who were involved in this, you know what I'm saying?
But again,
married people
follow the money. Those
Yes.
people were being paid handsomely to get naked on OnlyFans. Like I'm talking about people who could go buy Lamborghinis from having OnlyFans accounts. So again, goes back to follow the money. If there's wherever the money is,
Yes.
there you'll find corruption and
Definitely,
destruction.
definitely.
So what we say here today on the show is that we need to start a new narrative.
Yes.
These things will not go away. It's here to stay. And there's beauty in it as well.
Yeah.
True.
But it's also destroying families. It's also destroying relationships.
Yes.
It's also destroying marriages. And one of the things I must just say, and that is for everybody, is your phone is your go-to place.
Yes.
So if there's a disagreement between you and your spouse, or disagreement between you and your partner, the phone is a go-to place. You either go in a quiet corner and that's where you are. You don't talk, you don't do anything, you're just there. That's the one side. The other side is when your partner is not around, in a sense of you in courtship and the partner is you living in the south, the partner lives in the north or whatever.
Yes.
You go quiet on the partner. It's also, you see, you don't talk,
Yeah.
they talk and talk and talk and you go quiet on the partner.
Yeah.
That's also a way of a go-to place.
Yes.
So I'll punish you.
Yes.
I'll
yes.
punish you, or I'll block you.
Yeah.
Or I'll do something like that and you will know.
Yes.
And something that's supposed to help us is really so viciously out there to destroy. And the stats is really sad to know that 1 out of 3 marriages end up in a divorce course.
Yeah.
Based on online affairs. Absolute online affairs. And that's a negative of these influences. And something that's very, very sincere. For instance, I am not sure. I just want to say, maybe I'm old school. Not maybe I am. So I'm old, but I'm not necessarily the school part. So I'm saying, I'm not sure how some couples can handle it when the wife or the husband is sole alone on Facebook. I don't get that. The husband have all the styles, stand this way, stand that way, stand with a six-pack, does a muscle, and there's nothing about his wife on.
Yeah.
There's nothing about his children on. And there's nothing about his grandchildren on. It's only him every day in a new stand.
Yes.
Or a stance.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying in essence, that I can still handle. What I'm sure I will never handle is my wife showing her body parts every day, a different body part.
Yeah.
And she's married to me.
Yes.
For sure, you're going to invite somebody.
Definitely.
Because that is a negative.
Definitely. And Doc, you always mention it. I'm not married yet. I'm putting it out there, disclaimer. But it's definitely, you need to listen to sound doctrine, right? And Paul speaks to Titus about it in the book of Titus when he says that, younger women learn from older women. And it's so important to do that. And I feel like we've lost that respect there, firstly. We don't look at older women are you old school, older people are you old school, we don't listen to you don't know what you're doing, and stuff like that. So this is the reason why we open ourselves up to all of this. And you were saying, and we always portray our best sides on social media.
Yeah.
So it's like Xavier was saying, you're so woke, but common sense. I mean, obviously this person is not going to post themselves waking up first thing in the morning. You're not smelling their breath over social media. So why do you compare your spouse or your partner to this photoshopped person and to these lifestyles that are not real?
Yeah, a person, most of you will know T.D. Jakes, he calls it the Parental principle. It's the 80-20 principle.
Yes.
You trade 80% for 20%.
Yes.
So you just see that 20%
Yeah.
of whoever is online.
Yes.
And you trade what you have, the 80% what you have, for 20%. And now you leave the 80 to marry the 20. And when you're in this new marriage, you only then realize that you've traded 80%.
Yeah.
You downscale.
Man.
You literally
have to live with
downscale.
it.
Yeah. The multimedia platforms surely have a negative influence on marriages. And surely have. And again, it will not go away. It's about boundaries.
Yes.
It's about couples place boundaries in. It's about being honest. It's about your cell phone is available. Your PIN is available. There's no two phones. There's one. It's just you in the marriage.
Yeah.
You should handle it that way.
Yes.
And I would be very offended if my wife is sole alone on her Facebook. And now this is the thing that I don't understand. When it comes to values, they say it's old school.
Yes.
It's like it's weird. Like when there's a fall in moral issues, then that's old school. These days, if you lose your virginity, the earlier you lose it, the better. So you look weird if you're a young girl and you still have your virginity,
Yes.
out of choice. But it's so a democracy.
Yeah.
And it's so fairness and justice that you cannot decide for yourself if you want to keep your virginity.
Yes. It's so sick, Doc, mentioning that, because I've had, and I can share my personal story, I'm still a virgin, right? Because I believe in saving myself for marriage. And it's so sick where people would even ask me, like, they would question my sexuality based on the fact that I choose to keep myself pure for marriage, or that I choose to not get involved in every single relationship. Not that there aren't any offers, but there's a choice that you need to make, because you need to think futuristically. This instant gratification, that mindset that we have, it's a moment of, it's just for now. Just date so that you can experience things. Experience what? That's my question. Experience what? I want to know. I want you to answer me on what have you experienced doing what you're doing that's different for you in marriage now. How does that affect your marriage differently?
I most probably will say something that is most probably weird to say, but more from a medical perspective. How big is big?
Yes.
For sex?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, the reason why I'm asking that question is simply because a nurse one day asked the same question in one of the discussions in one of our side halls when we did this marital stuff.
Yeah.
A nurse asked, can you be bigger than a baby's head? Because that's what the vagina delivers.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Exactly.
Can you be that big?
Yes.
Now, look at the stupidity behind this whole thing. The chasing for love that you don't know what you chase.
Yeah.
And it puts pressure on the guys.
Yes.
Longer, stronger, bigger, better.
Yeah.
Harder and whatever.
We see the posters everywhere. Penis enlargement. Like, seriously, people.
I want to jump in on
It's humorous. We have to laugh about it
silly,
because people actually base their preferences
they buy
on.
into it. Yeah.
Come I tell you what this program is all about.
Yes.
There's a narrative out there. And the minute you try to bring an obscure thing into balance,
Yes.
you
You're going against
Yeah,
it.
You going
exactly.
against
Yeah,
the-
you're not supposed to be.
No.
But they can.
Yes.
Now this is exactly the point.
Yeah.
And I must just admit that is why I admire so many of these podcast guys overseas. They at the point where they made a decision. I think South
They don't
Africa
care
is
anymore.
close to that.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think I'm closer to
I'm
that.
also close to it.
I'm very close to stand my grounds and have a narrative because
Yes.
you cannot just
You can't
accept-
shove your narrative down my throat, man. And
Exactly.
then I
Force
must
it
just
upon
be
you.
quiet and just accept it. It's
Exactly.
wrong. If we're
Yes.
saying we're living in a democracy, if we're saying we are allowed to make our own decisions, then don't shove your decision on my throat. And if I don't accept it, then there's something wrong with me. I'm going to jump onto something Leandra said just now. She was talking about instant gratification, right? And so I was watching a interesting interview where they were actually interviewing Kevin Hart, right? And so they were asking him, how did you become a rock star? How did you become so popular? And he was sharing his story. Remember, we were listening to his story, his audiobook. He was sharing his story on this interview. It was with Grant Cardone at his 10X conference. They were sitting on stage. He was sharing his story. And he said the one thing that went wrong with him is that when he started getting money, he thought it was his money and he just started spending the money. And then when tax came, he was owing tax over $600,000. And when they started deducting tax, he was like, wait, what's going on? Where's my money? Where, you know what's happening? And then he ended up having to even fire one of his financial guys and said, wait, I need to know what's going on in my own finances here because I'm getting into hot water all the time and I'm not sure how to deal with it. And then he says, what he does now is that he splits his income, he makes sure he covers tax, he makes sure he covers savings, and then he lives off a portion, that which is a biblical principle.
Yeah.
And so the question I'm asking is, why do we understand when it comes to financial principles? And then he mentioned instant gratification. He's saying these footballers and these guys that are coming into what they call new money is getting so excited, buying expensive cars, going out all over the show, posting on IG how they're living in broad houses and stuff. And then 2-3 years down the line, they bankrupt. And then he's saying because we don't have financial literacy. So we understand that concept when it comes to finance. Why do we not understand it when it comes to sex? Why is it that instant gratification is fine? Why is it that overexposure is fine? And then later on, when we sit with the hurt and the pain and the divorce and the child now that doesn't have a father and all these issues that we now have to deal with later on in our lives, we don't consider it's that decision you made when you were 18. It's that decision you made when you were 20. Kirk Franklin speaks about it.
Yeah.
He has an open argument with his 33-year-old son. And he's saying, I wish somebody told me when I was 18, the decisions that I made then is going to come back and bite me when I'm almost 50-something years old.
Yeah.
But
And so
again,
it's again-
it boils down to influence. What influenced him to get to that point at 18 years old? What was he exposed to?
Well, I tell you, I'm enjoying this discussion here.
Yeah.
It's rather interesting because we're talking role play.
Yes.
How does a kid behave in a house 2-3 years old? Yesterday was one of my grandchildren's birthdays, and he turned 3 yesterday. So I was minding my own business, watching the news. He was playing with his toys there. And he got this whole range of toys.
Yeah.
And he really enjoyed those toys. And he just dropped it and walked up to me and said, Grandpa, give me your phone. At 3. I said, oh, what do you want to do with my phone?
Yeah.
Okay, you couldn't interpret what he wanted to do,
Yeah.
but he knows exactly. Then I tried to get him to say, what do you want to watch? He said, Hulk.
Yeah.
It's like he loves Hulk.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, the influence at 3 and the power of the multimedia platforms. So whatever Hulk will do, he'll do.
Yeah.
And then we move from that segment into the marital segment,
Yes.
showing how that influence marriages or partners or relationships.
Yeah.
And what we say here today, there should be boundaries.
Yes.
We cannot wish these platforms away,
Yes.
but there should be boundaries.
Definitely.
And parents should not be scared for their children if it comes to boundaries. And I must just admit, I know of parents, they put boundaries in place, but I can also see the children, how they turn out. You can clearly see the difference between this child and their child. And and you cannot label how to raise your child, but you can clearly see that. And now I want to move in short to the segment around the influence of a student based on multimedia platform towards teachers. And you mentioned something around it.
So I got the stats out here, and it says that 20% of South Africa teachers believe that schools are violent places and suspect their students and colleagues are armed. right? And then it says here about 70% of teachers reported fights involving weapons at school, and almost 13% of teachers believe gangs operate in their schools. Now, what we're saying here is that we've seen an increase in violence with teachers and with students to teachers, right? And I believe that back in the day, and I think also when I was growing up, there was this thing, corporal punishment, right? That was still in schools, where, I don't know, you'd put your hand out and the teacher would hit the hand with the ruler, and the teacher would name the ruler something.
Was it still in your time?
There was still in my time when I was. I'd say,
And you, JC, same.
yeah.
Yeah, it changed when we were in high school.
Definitely when
like
it was
the
primary school for me.
Yeah.
That was
It
primary
changed
school.
when I was. It changed when I was at last year or
But
so.
did you
Yes.
hear that, Doc? They're talking about a slap on the head.
You used to get on a
They go
power.
like that.
We didn't get slap on the head.
Sometimes,
We used to
you know,
get
there
the
was
slap
one
on the
teacher, you had to turn your hand
No,
around
knuckles.
and she would do the knuckles. And some of the guys, they were so clever, they used to put tubes in it, you know, car tubes in the back. Because this was the boys who used to get it. Eh? Pins, and then they press it, squeeze it. Yes,
Hectic.
Leandra, you were saying.
So yes, but obviously now corporal punishment has been banned in many parts of the world, right? I recently read that in the United States, there's still 19 states that still believe in corporal punishment, but there's a lot of, especially in the UK and in different parts of the world, where it's banned. So corporal punishment is no longer a thing. But now here's the thing with this: students being violent towards other students and students being violent towards teachers. For me, I feel like it escalated, especially now with the presence of social media, because now you take out your phone and you record, right? And it's all about going viral. It's this thing of, there's that word that we want to use, the viral culture. Everything must go viral. So I feel like it's definitely increased when there's more audacity now with students to do that to teachers. And I also believe to some degree that it's because we have taken away the fundamentals of discipline in schools and in the homes. We started this conversation with relationships between parents and their kids. It definitely does have ripple effects in the rest of society, and we're seeing it in schools, where teachers feel unsafe to be at schools because they believe that students are armed. Then there's also something that I read here, where it says that there was an incident of violence at a Siribeng school. A video showing a pupil throwing what appears to be an exercise book at a teacher in the classroom went viral. There's that word again, right? In the video, the teacher walks out of the classroom because obviously a teacher cannot now exercise
Defend
their
themselves.
authority because cancel culture will come for you and they will cancel you, and the teacher will be without a job, and the teachers and the ripple effects of that on the teacher's family and upon the school in general, upon our education system in general. Then it says that some teachers go for counseling after violent incidents, but others don't want to be recognized as having been handmandled or defeated. Then it says here that in that video, other pupils are laughing as they watch the teacher being hit and walking out of the classroom.
It's sad. It's so sad.
Yeah.
But it's all based on the mass media
Yes.
influence. And then the other side is that break in between or after school
Yes.
when they fight.
Yes.
That goes viral.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. And nobody stops it.
No.
Because everybody's after, everyone's phone is out.
Exactly. Everybody wants to make
Yeah.
public.
We're really living in a
viral.
look. Time is really catching up with us.
Yeah.
I just need to get to because the one on the educators and the learners really intertwine
With-
literally with our whole discussion.
Yes.
I want to get to one the clergy and the congregation and the influences from that perspective. And this morning when we discussed the show with you, Leandra, just give us a backdrop on the discussion about the clergy and the congregation.
Okay, so with that discussion, right, we're discussing how congregational members, or not even just congregational members, but public in general, undermine the authority of the clergy. They undermine the authority of the pastor. And this is also because of mass media's influence. We'll give examples, for instance. The pastor that fed his congregation petrol and grass, the pastor that fed his congregation ratics, the pastors that are doing these false prophets, I'm going to call them out by name, these false prophets doing these things like raising people from the dead as an act right? These fake things going around, and the media push that. But when you read the headlines, so for me as a linguist, as an editor, somebody who has background knowledge into writing, I know exactly how journalists think. There's always propaganda, and there's certain words that influences the way when we read something, it influences the way we think. So the headline needs to be catching, and they always push this narrative of to undermine the authority of the church and of spirituality.
That brings the dollar. Now, on that note, let me explain, which I believe is a deliberate set of darkness.
Yes.
Now, you understand that the spirit world is more real than the natural world.
Yes.
So meaning things first happen in the spirit. If you look at Daniel's prayer,
Yes.
God answered his prayer 21 days prior, but there was a hold up in the spirit world. So because darkness is spirit side,
Yes.
just as angels and God and the Almighty is spiritual, you find demonic stuff that's also spiritual.
Yes.
Now, just to help somebody out there that don't understand what I'm saying, so if a couple fights in the house and you walk in, you don't have to see the couple. You sense the atmosphere. There's a atmosphere. You will call it an atmosphere. There's a spirit loose there.
They say it's so thick you can cut it with a knife.
Yeah. Now that's the closest I can get to this. But because the spirit world is so real, darkness knew all along, and I believe that firmly, because COVID-19 was somewhere designed deliberately to bring harm to a world. If it was through a rat or through whatever, but if you track it down, is who's fooling who here?
Yeah.
Because a lot of scientists reckon that this virus is around, the COVID-19 virus, would have taken under normal circumstances 100 years to develop to the extent for what it is now. Meaning that it must be somewhere designed in the lab. So I don't know who's blaming who, because there's some people in this that who are scientists in America and in China that's clear about this thing was designed, but there's two narratives running for what it may. All I'm saying, if the spirit world is more real than the natural world, then darkness, which means demonic forces, knew all along that COVID is on its way. That's what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
because somebody was designing it negatively
Yes.
before you could see it manifest.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So this is it. So what happened with all these pastors, with the petrol and the doom and the fake miracles? The devil was setting that up in order for governments to disrespect church
Yeah.
within COVID. That's why we don't have any muscle now.
Yeah.
It was completely demonic. But if you watch news every night, mass media, they will drive Pastor Elflikau. They will drive, I don't know all these guys that was involved, Bushiri. They will drive the plane, the kind of money that they have. They will, the lifestyles. They will never, of course there's good also with these guys.
Yeah.
But they will never drive another narrative.
No.
They will drive that because it brings the dollar home again.
Yeah.
So people will watch. But what that is doing, it brought a kind of form of disrespect
Yes.
towards clergy
Yes.
and the kingdom of God. So much so that because of the fake miracle, every single pastor was powerless in performing miracles in COVID. And
Yeah.
that's a given fact.
Yeah.
Because there was a level of distrust towards them. That's why we're still not open. That's why the malls are full.
Yeah.
And church is not open.
Yeah.
Or it's open with 100 people. The answer is darkness, because of mass media, forced the narrative towards the principalities of rulership around the governing of a country.
Yeah.
A negative narrative. So when you want to walk in there, they say, you don't have any contribution towards the economy, that's why you're not open. But if you literally look in retrospect, the role emotionally that a church plays in the life of people,
Yeah.
the pastors that was on during COVID every day to calm the people down, to preach and give them direction. Every single thing that is driven as a negative out there, it's the church is the only institute, literally, that will come and oppose a negative narrative so that people can find hope and not just lose the insanity
Sure.
and their soul at the cost of. So just back to this. What I'm saying here, mass media pushed a narrative
Yes.
in order for disrespect to get into the church.
Yes.
And it's there now.
Yes.
But it's our duty and our responsibility to correct it.
Definitely.
This is what I'm saying. I think I was quiet when Elf Lekau raised the fake dead. I think I was quiet when they were drinking petrol and doom and allow. I think the reason why I think it was wrong of the church,
Yeah.
and I'm part of it, not to say anything. They, at this point in time, measure us with exactly
The same
The
as
same measure.
the same measurement.
And
So-
there's no legitimate authority
Yes.
that's standing up.
Yeah,
And we need
there's
that
no
voice.
authority that will go live and say we distance ourselves from these guys.
Yes.
This is not what the text is saying.
Yes.
This is a but you must not forget the media will not drive the narrative.
No.
So you should find another platform.
Yes.
But somebody should call a conference, a media
Definitely.
conference. Somebody should do a media release.
Yes.
So that when times like these, like this COVID stuff happen, that people don't just throw us in the same bucket.
Yes.
Because somebody need to call it out at some
I
point.
want to drop something on there. Do you think it's a false notion to think that your voice doesn't count? I say yes. The reason I'm saying yes, there was this morning they were interviewing a guy. I was listening on the radio as I was driving here. They were interviewing the guy. I think his website is called The Good Guy or The Good News Guy or something. And what he does is he looks for good stories in South Africa and then he posts about it and he makes videos and talks about the good stories that's happening in South Africa. He says when he first started his website, he was kind of finding one good story per week. Then he found one good story per day. And then now he says it's up to 6 good stories for the day. So like today he's already got 6 stories that he's going to write about and post about on his website and all this. I think it's called The Good Guy. And so the interviewer asking him, he says, oh, so people actually looking for good news. He says, hey, since COVID started and they were speaking about that depression hotline and stuff, he says people are looking for anything outside of what media is force feeding us. Because I think people are also starting to get to the point of, yes, bro, I can't listen to the same rubbish every day. And I think people are becoming smart also to understand that, nah, man, there's an agenda being pushed here, there's a narrative being pushed here. I can't even trust the media. It's at the point people don't trust government anymore. They say, the government always just pushes their own agenda. They eat the money. Where's the 500 billion? Where's the money? So they've completely lost trust to the government. To the point where there's a lot of people I'm hearing more and more say, I'm not even believing the COVID numbers anymore because you'll say this number, then you'll say this number, then you'll change the story. We don't know what to believe anymore. So I think there is a platform where this is hope for us and good news for us that we can actually raise our voices and say, hold on, man, we don't agree with this. And you'll be surprised. I see it this way. When I was at school, right, especially in high school, and I was the only Christian kind of around. And I'm almost speaking like Elijah now. I'm the only one left. And God's like, no, you're not the only one left. There's a bunch. When I started standing for my faith at school, then there's one of my other friends came, hey, bro, I also go to church. What church do you go to? Then we were 2. Then another friend, when they started saying, hey, there's some momentum here, then people start coming out of the woodworks to say, actually, I also don't really agree with this, man.
Yeah.
I'm also a Christian, but I was scared to say something.
Yes.
And there's this picture where there's four, you know, those like little memes where there's like 4 images, né?
Yeah.
So the first one has a guy standing with a whip and everyone standing in front of him. Then the second picture is a guy standing with the whip and everyone bowing to him. But then there's one guy that stands up. Then the third picture is him still standing with the whip, but there's a bigger guy, like there's more people standing up. And then the last picture is him bowing and everyone standing up. And what that picture is saying is that we think that everyone agrees with the narrative. Everyone doesn't agree with the narrative. They're just so scared of cancel culture and they're scared to say something because they're scared they're going to be attacked that they don't say anything. But the second you say, hey man, you're talking rubbish, then you'll see them starting to come out the woodworks. Actually, I agree with you, Pastor.
Yeah.
This is not, we don't stand around the same fire with this thing. So I think it does take a Gideon or an Elijah or someone to say, Nah, man, we're tired of this now. We're gonna still stand up and push our own thing now.
Yeah. For instance, an example, Xavier, is what you're talking about now is that you will be surprised that there's more people who agree with you that don't agree with you. And we always talk about this, but you're so scared of cancel culture. So these guys in America, the Daily Wire is, there's different shows like how we have this podcast. They also have a podcast. It's the Daily Wire. And they are very, very popular, right? So they are a group of conservatives and they speak like their minds, right? And they also call out people who this cancel culture, like the far left, right? And there's many things that I don't agree with them, like in terms of their policies and stuff like that. But there's certain things like that I definitely do agree with them. As much as the left, the far left, is calling them out on certain things, like for instance, the issue of abortion or LGBTQI plus or whatever the case may be, and canceling them, they've switched it around and they said, okay, on our show we have this segment called Cancel Culture, where we will now cancel you because you want to cancel us, so we will cancel you. So it will be a cancel
because
party.
who gave you the right that your word is true and mine is a lie?
Exactly.
Based upon which authority?
Yeah, on
Listen,
which authority?
on that note, it was such a great honor and privilege to have you on the set here today on the mass media influences on roles in society. I think we've reached a lot here today, and we need more platforms similar to this platform to come out there and not be scared and to address it and bring another narrative.
Yes.
Because in essence, the truth is, the companies that's out there, they just wanted to make money and they don't care
Yes.
how they'll make money.
Yes.
And at the cost of your family, at the cost of your marriage, at the
Yes.
cost of relationships, at the cost of schools and systems, it doesn't matter as long as it brings $1 home. I think South Africa is closer and closer to the place now
Yes.
where a different narrative will come forth.
Definitely.
I think, and we should stand up for something.
Yes.
Because you will fall for everything
Definitely.
if you don't stand. Well, from our side, this was the Inside Show. It was
one
such.
thing, Doc.
Is there something else?
Yes, we just want to mention one thing quickly. We've got exciting news coming up, and we need to mention this now. So a week from now, we have our 100th episode. Can you believe it? A week from now will be our 100th episode. We've come a long way. We've come a very, very long way. Exactly.
Can you believe that?
It's a big milestone, so we will be celebrating it big, and we want you to be part of it. So please share your memories with us. You can go onto our Instagram page, that is at @the_insights_show. Send me a DM, send us a message on info@insightshow, so without the S at the end of insights, insightshow.co.za. You can email us your memories, you can email us. We've got some very lovely testimonials, which we will be sharing next week as well. And also we have a giveaway coming up, so please do check our social media platforms for that. Check our Facebook page and check our Instagram page. We will be posting about that giveaway. Over to you, Doc.
Well, let me try one more time.
Yes.
It was good having you on today on the Inside Show, and thank you so much. I want you to subscribe every single time, and I want you to hit that bell every time when we come online. You will know that we are on. From my side to you, you must have a super wonderful Tuesday. All the best. Take care. Love you. God loves you best. All the best. Goodbye.
Good morning, everybody. It is so good to have you here with me. Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months.
This morning is all about the leadership and influence.